Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back to the daily life of medieval peasants. Not the knights and castles part, but the part where you wake up before the sun, your back already aching at the thought of another day in the fields, and your stomach growling for a breakfast that would make a modern food blogger faint. Imagine, no avocado toast, no artisanal coffee. You'd probably last about 5 minutes in this world before frantically Googling nearest Starbucks, only to realize the internet won't be invented for another 800 years. It really makes you appreciate the simple luxuries we take for granted, doesn't it? What's one modern convenience you absolutely couldn't live without if you were transported back in time? But let's settle in. The air is damp, heavy with the scent of turned earth and wood smoke. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows, though it's still dark enough that the stars cling stubbornly to the sky. You roll off your straw, mattress, no memory foam here, just itchy, scratchy straw, and pull on a tunic that's more patched than original fabric. It's probably been worn by several generations. The floor is hard-packed dirt, and the chill seeps into your bones before you've even taken a step. This isn't just a physical chill. It's a constant reminder of the harsh realities of life, where comfort is a distant dream and survival is the only goal. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? I love connecting with all of you, seeing how far our little community reaches across the globe. It's fascinating to think that, while I'm talking about a life centuries ago, you're experiencing it from so many different time zones and cultures today. Your engagement truly helps this channel grow, allowing us to explore more forgotten corners of history together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine yourself wrapped in a coarse woolen blanket, the only source of warmth coming from a flickering hearth. The sounds of a distant village are barely audible, replaced by the crackling of the fire and the whisper of the wind outside. This isn't just a story. It's an invitation to step into a life so fundamentally different from ours, yet one that laid the groundwork for everything we know. Let your imagination transport you, and let's explore this forgotten world. Your first meal of the day is porridge. Shocking, I know, but not the creamy, honey-drizzled, Instagram-worthy kind. This is gruel in its most honest form, watery, grayish, and with the occasional surprise of a pebble that the millstone missed. You eat it from a wooden bowl that's seen better days, the spoon rough against your lips. If you're lucky, there's a pinch of salt. If you're very lucky, a splash of yesterday's milk. This isn't just about the taste. It's about pure, unadulterated sustenance, designed to keep you alive, not to delight your palate. Think about your breakfast this morning. Did it include any unexpected rocky additions? Here's a fun fact. Medieval peasants ate 2 meals a day, breakfast and dinner, because, well, who had time for lunch when the fields demanded every ounce of daylight? And speaking of fields, yours stretch out in uneven rows, the soil stubborn and streaked with morning dew. The oxen are already hitched, their breath fogging in the cool air as they plod forward. You follow, your feet sinking slightly into the mud with each step. It's a relentless cycle, driven by the sun and the seasons, with no pause for a leisurely midday break or a quick snack. How do you think your productivity would fare on just 2 meals a day? But let's talk about bread, because bread was life, literally. The average peasant consumed about 2 to 3 pounds of it daily. Not the fluffy, artisanal loaves we fantasize about, but dense, dark, and often gritty stuff made from barley or rye. Historians still argue whether it was the lack of dental care or the bread itself that wore down teeth faster. My personal take? It was probably a brutal combination of both. Imagine chewing on something that felt like it had sand in it, day after day, for your entire life. It gives whole grain a whole new meaning, doesn't it? And here's something you might not know, that bread wasn't always safe. Ergot, a toxic fungus that grew on damp rye, could sneak into the flour. In small doses, it caused hallucinations, leading to bizarre visions and strange behaviors. In large doses, let's just say some historians think it might have fueled accusations of witchcraft and mass hysteria during medieval times. Tonight's dinner: bread and possible psychedelic side effects. It's a chilling thought that something so fundamental to survival could also be a source of such dangerous and mysterious ailments. It makes you wonder what other hidden dangers lurked in their everyday food. You wipe your hands on your tunic. Hygiene is a loose concept, often ignored until illness forces a change. And take a swig of small ale. It's weaker than modern beer, but safer than the local water, which occasionally smells suspiciously of the pigs upstream. The drink is sour, slightly tangy, and you grimace before taking another sip. Acquired tastes were less of a choice and more of a survival tactic. Imagine if your only safe drinking option tasted like a slightly fermented barnyard. It really highlights how precious clean water is, a luxury many of us simply expect with every tap. As the sun climbs higher, the village priest passes by, eyeing the workers with a mix of pity and impatience. Fasting days are coming, and he's already mentally preparing his sermon about piety and self-denial. You sigh. At least the cows are consistent. Their milk, however curdled, will be there when the church's rules leave your stomach empty. The church, a powerful force, often dictated not just spiritual life but also what and when you could eat, adding another layer of constraint to an already difficult existence. It makes you wonder how much faith truly sustained them versus the practical realities of their daily grind. The rhythm of the day lulls you into a kind of trance, the scrape of the plow, the distant chatter of other workers, the occasional burst of laughter when someone tells a joke too crude for the priest's ears. It's monotonous, exhausting, and yet there's a simplicity to it. No emails, no traffic, just the earth and what it gives you. It's a stark contrast to our hyper-connected lives, where notifications constantly demand our attention. While the physical toll was immense, perhaps there was a certain peace in the absence of modern complexities. What do you think you'd miss most about your digital life if you lived then? But don't romanticize it too much. By noon, your back is a single knot of pain, your hands are blistered, and you're pretty sure you just swallowed a bug. This isn't a quaint historical reenactment. It's a brutal, unforgiving existence where every day is a struggle for survival. The romantic notion of a simpler time quickly dissipates when faced with the raw, visceral reality of constant physical discomfort and the unending battle against hunger and the elements. It makes you truly appreciate the medical advancements and basic sanitation we often take for granted today. The bread you hold doesn't just fill your stomach. It profoundly dictates your entire existence. You meticulously break off another substantial piece of the coarse, dark, and often gritty loaf, carefully chewing to avoid the persistent grit within the crudely milled flour. This meal marks your third today entirely built around humble bread, and it certainly won't be your last. But this simple loaf is inherently political. It embodies the intricate, rigid structure of feudal society, where every aspect of your existence, from the food you sparingly consume to the land you tirelessly till, is absolutely controlled by the Lord's overarching power. It serves as a constant, undeniable reminder of your fixed social position, unwavering obligations, and the pervasive power dynamic shaping every waking moment of your arduous day. Do you ever truly pause to reflect on the often hidden power, structures that subtly influence and define the very food we casually consume in our modern lives today? Every struggling village possesses a communal oven, a formidable stone beast perpetually smoldering, its heat a constant reminder of the village's dependence. However, utilizing this essential facility is far from free. You're compelled to pay the Lord's designated baker either in precious grain from your meager harvest or through arduous labor, all for the privilege of baking your family's bread. And if you dare to bake your own bread at home, punitive fines are astronomically steep enough to make you profoundly reconsider, often involving swift confiscation of your precious flour or even a humiliating, publicly administered lashing. This rigorous control wasn't merely about convenience or quality. It was a deliberate, shrewd strategy by the Lord to maintain absolute control over his peasant population, cunningly ensuring their complete dependence on him and guaranteeing a steady, uninterrupted stream of vital revenue for his coffers. Can you truly imagine living where even the most fundamental act of providing sustenance for your family came with such a heavy price and under such constant, intrusive oversight. You cast a weary glance towards the mill by the murmuring stream, its great ancient wooden wheel creaking rhythmically. The opportunistic miller, often viewed with suspicion, invariably takes his substantial cut, diligently grinding your painstakingly cultivated grain into flour, but maddeningly seeming to walk away with just a little extra. There's a bitter joke in the village that the miller's scales are perhaps the only thing in the entire kingdom heavier than the king's notoriously burdensome taxes, a jest utterly devoid of humor for those living its truth. You don't laugh. You've witnessed the swift and often brutal consequences for anyone brave enough to accuse him of outright cheating, a savage response directly from the Lord's unforgiving bailiff. This systemic corruption, from the conniving baker to the avaricious miller, was simply an entrenched part of the peasant's unavoidable burden, an accepted, deeply resented cost of merely existing and surviving under feudal rule. It truly makes one ponder what subtle, often invisible forms of cuts and systemic unfairness we unknowingly still accept and endure within our seemingly advanced modern economic systems. Here's a fascinating fact that might genuinely surprise you, highlighting the era's stark social divisions. Not all bread was created equally, or meant for the same mouths. The whiter and finer the loaf, the significantly higher your social status within the rigid hierarchy. The Lord's opulent table consistently boasts fine, meticulously sieved wheat bread, remarkably soft, pleasingly pale, and utterly unattainable for someone of your lowly standing. Your own daily bread, in stark contrast, is invariably darker, substantially heavier, and often bulked out with less desirable ingredients like humble peas or even bitter acorns when times become particularly lean and desperate. Historians continue to passionately debate whether the lower classes genuinely preferred their dense, robust loaves, or if they simply had absolutely no alternative choice whatsoever. Spoiler alert, it was undeniably, and tragically, the latter. This omnipresent culinary hierarchy served as a vividly visible and constant symbol of the era's rigid social stratification, a daily, tangible reminder of the vast, unbridgeable chasm that existed between the privileged, aristocratic few and the countless, relentlessly toiling many. But amidst the pervasive hardships, there's also a secret, fleeting joy within your humble bread. On rare and cherished feast days, when the stern church mercifully relaxes its stringent dietary rules and moral strictures, a precious handful of plump raisins or a delicate drizzle of golden honey might, by some small miracle, find their way into the unyielding dough. These exceedingly rare and exquisite additions miraculously transform the mundane and monotonous into something truly extraordinary and deeply special. Those are the blessed days you deliberately savor each and every precious bite, allowing the subtle sweetness to lovingly linger on your grateful tongue like a truly stolen moment of forbidden luxury, a brief escape from the harsh realities of your daily life. It is precisely within these fleeting, cherished, and almost sacred moments that the simple, profound pleasure of taste miraculously transcends mere basic sustenance, offering a desperately needed respite from the relentless, soul-crushing grind, and serving as a poignant reminder of life's small, yet incredibly precious indulgences that make enduring the hardships worthwhile. The most compelling village gossip today revolves around young Old Tom's impetuous son, tragically, caught attempting to sneak an extra, unauthorized loaf from the communal oven, a desperate act born of hunger. The Lord's harsh bailiff, swift and merciless, took a brutal 3 strips of hide from the boy's back as punishment, a visible testament to the Lord's absolute power. However, everyone in the village profoundly knows that the true, more enduring, punishment is the indelible shame that will inevitably follow him relentlessly for the rest of his days, a social stigma far worse than any physical pain. You instinctively make a grim mental note to meticulously double-check your own family's meager grain stores tonight. It is undeniably better, you rationalize, to endure the pangs of hunger now than to risk the agonizing lash and public humiliation later. The constant chilling threat of such severe and often disproportionate punishment for even minor transgressions starkly underscores the brutal, unforgiving realities of feudal justice, where basic survival frequently meant rigidly adhering to strict, often arbitrary, and incredibly capricious rules under relentless, pervasive surveillance. What personal limits would you be willing to test, and what would it genuinely take for you to risk absolutely everything you hold dear, just for a single precious mouthful of truly satisfying food in such a desperate era? As the evening finally falls, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, you wearily dunk your well-worn piece of bread into a thin, watery pottage composed simply of peas and onions, the sparse, lukewarm broth doing its humble best to soften the stubbornly hard crust. Around you, the firelight gently flickers and dances across tired, gaunt faces, the day's relentless labor finally giving way to quiet, comforting murmurs and the soft, almost imperceptible sounds of communal eating. Someone, almost imperceptibly, begins to hum a song, low and distinctly off-key, but no one in the weary circle complains. The shared solace of the moment transcends the lack of musical perfection. The meager bread fills your aching belly. The flickering fire warms your chilled bones, and for this fleeting moment, in this simple shared space, that is undeniably enough. These deeply shared moments of simple communal sustenance and quiet camaraderie, even amidst the bone-deep exhaustion and pervasive hardship, powerfully highlight the vital, indispensable role of community in their lives, forging unbreakable bonds that collectively helped them to endure the relentless, soul-crushing hardships of their daily existence, creating a shared resilience. This, then, is the cyclical and unyielding rhythm of medieval peasant life, meticulously dictated by the ever-changing seasons, the relentless passage of the sun across the sky, and the unceasing, often arbitrary demands of the Lord, all fundamentally revolving around that single, indispensable loaf of bread. It is, by any modern standard, an undeniably harsh and unforgiving existence, constantly defined by gnawing scarcity and relentless, back-breaking labor. Yet, remarkably, within this very hardship, there exists a profound and almost spiritual connection to the earth beneath their feet, a deep and unyielding appreciation for every single hard-earned calorie consumed, and an astonishing, indomitable resilience that allowed them not only to miraculously survive, but also, on rare occasions, to discover genuine moments of simple, unadulterated joy. As you deeply consider their lives, what particular aspect of their incredible resourcefulness and their ability to endure do you personally find most profoundly admirable? And how might we, in our own comparatively abundant lives today, effectively incorporate some of that essential spirit into our modern existence, perhaps learning to appreciate the simple necessities more deeply? You deliberately step off the well-trodden path, your keen eyes meticulously scanning the fertile ground for any hint of green and anything remotely edible that might offer a supplement to your meager diet. The familiar forest fringe isn't just a picturesque boundary, it's your essential, unofficial pantry, truly nature's last desperate resort when the precious grain from the harvest runs dangerously low. Tonight's simple pottage will undoubtedly be stretched even thinner than usual, so every single handful of tangy sorrel, every tender, bitter dandelion leaf, and every nascent wild spring onion matters immensely, each one a small victory against hunger. Your wise grandmother, a fount of ancient knowledge, used to sagely remark that foraging was precisely half meal, half medicine, a profound and vital wisdom carefully passed down through countless struggling generations. Right now, in this moment of acute need, you would readily settle for either, or ideally, both. This isn't merely about the basic act of finding food. It's about cultivating a profound, almost instinctual, and deeply ingrained connection to the very land itself, understanding its subtle, unspoken language of sustenance and survival, a language that whispers promises of hidden nourishment, if one only knows how to listen. The very first unspoken rule of peasant botany, a survival maxim learned from harsh experience, is remarkably simple. If the pigs willingly eat it, you probably can too. Though the young, fresh tops of nettles sting your fingers sharply as you cautiously pluck them, you know from hard-won experience that once they are painstakingly boiled twice, their irritating bite will completely vanish, leaving behind a wonderfully spinach-like earthiness that is both nutritious and palatable. A small, precious patch of pungent wild garlic is carefully gathered into your worn leather pouch next, its unmistakably strong, verdant smell clinging persistently to your calloused hands, a scent of survival. While modern historians might later dismissively label these vital greens as mere famine food, you intimately know the profound truth. These readily available wild greens aren't solely for desperate, starving times. They are, in fact, the subtle, often overlooked flavors that miraculously make the relentless monotony of mere survival taste marginally less grim, simultaneously providing essential vitamins and crucial minerals that their typically grain-heavy diet so often tragically lacked. It's a remarkable testament to profound human adaptability, transforming basic, often unappealing wild plants into truly vital and sustaining nourishment. Here's a crucial insight they often overlook in the grand sweeping narratives of history books. Medieval peasants possessed an almost encyclopedic, deeply localized knowledge of the indigenous plants surrounding them, far surpassing the understanding of any modern botanist without their extensive, systematic field guides. That particular mushroom with the ominous red spots and an alluring appearance, absolute death in a deceptive, pretty package. A harrowing lesson all too often learned through tragic, irreparable experience within the community. The feathery fern delicately unfurling over there by the ancient oak, perfectly safe for consumption, if meticulously boiled with wood ashes to meticulously leach out any residual toxins. You instinctively make a mental note of the robust burdock roots vigorously growing near the murmuring creek, far too tough and deeply embedded to dig up easily now, but come the unforgiving depths of winter, their starchy, nutrient-rich cores will be immeasurably worth the pain of frozen, aching fingers. This wasn't merely acquired knowledge. It was a constantly updated, meticulously refined oral tradition, a living, breathing library of indispensable survival lore, meticulously curated through generations of intimate engagement with the natural world. You instinctively pause by a gnarled hawthorn bush, its thorny branches still stubbornly clinging to a few withered, overlooked haws from the abundance of last autumn. The esteemed village-wise woman, a revered figure of ancient wisdom, staunchly claims these tiny tart berries possess the power to cure various heart ailments, a deeply held belief firmly rooted in centuries of meticulous observation and painstaking trial and error, often inextricably combining practical folk remedies with deeply ingrained superstition. Though you primarily recognize them as a convenient, tart distraction to chew on when the inevitable hunger pangs mercilessly strike you mid-field, offering a fleeting, tart distraction from your perpetually empty stomach. As you gingerly pop one into your mouth, the immediate tartness makes your jaw instinctively clench. It's not truly food, so much as a potent reminder that sustenance genuinely exists somewhere. A small, tangible promise that nourishment, however meager, can indeed be discovered and found, even in the most unlikely and desolate places, offering a glimmer of hope in times of desperate scarcity. Back at your small, humble cottage, the day's carefully gathered greens are unceremoniously added to yesterday's meager bone broth, a rather generous term for water that has merely seen a solitary mutton knuckle for a faint hint of flavor. The well-used pot gently bubbles and hisses over the small, flickering fire as you carefully add your foraged treasures, watching them soften and meld. A precious handful of hoarded barley, a mere pinch of coarse salt, and suddenly, almost miraculously, it transforms into a recognizable meal. Well, sort of. This daily, almost alchemical transformation from sparse, disparate ingredients into a recognizable, albeit incredibly humble yet deeply satisfying meal speaks volumes about their extraordinary, almost innate resourcefulness and ingenuity in the face of constant deprivation. It genuinely makes one wonder how much vital, fundamental knowledge we have irrevocably lost in our modern era of overwhelming abundance by simply opening a prepackaged product, rather than understanding the fundamental foundational processes of truly creating nourishing food from its very raw beginnings. There's an intricate art to stretching precious, meager ingredients, an art you've painstakingly perfected over many grueling years, an art born purely of absolute dire necessity. The very same pot of pottage, a perennial staple, will remarkably last for 3 continuous days, gradually gaining distinct character and, admittedly, some questionable textures, with each subsequent reheating a testament to their enduring creativity. Your weary neighbor, a figure of shared experience, often jokes that his family's perpetual stew has direct ancestors, older and more venerable than the king's entire royal lineage. You don't doubt his claim for a moment, as countless stories of generations surviving on similar meager, perpetually simmering concoctions abound throughout the close-knit village. This clever, continuous cooking method was a brilliant and highly effective way to maximize both the flavor and the vital nutrients from limited resources, a true testament to their remarkable ingenuity in the unyielding face of constant, severe scarcity, and a stark, humbling contrast to our modern concept of best by dates. As you quietly eat your meager supper, you watch the village children playing boisterously outside in the fading light, their laughter echoing softly. They're happily nibbling on sweet Sicily stems, treating them like nature's own delicious candy, their small pockets bulging with tiny, precious wild strawberries so incredibly minute that it would take at least 20 of them to equal the size of just one single modern berry. It suddenly occurs to you, with a pang of realization, that these unburdened children probably possess more intimate, practical knowledge about the land's edible offerings than any cloistered scholar diligently studying from brittle parchment scrolls in the warmth and comfort of a distant abbey. Their expansive classroom was the vast, whispering forest. Their comprehensive textbooks were the plants themselves, a practical education honed by spontaneous play and harsh, undeniable necessity, meticulously preparing them for a challenging life profoundly and inextricably intertwined with the raw, demanding forces of nature. The powerful church, in its lofty pronouncements, often romanticizes your daily foraging as simple living, painting a bucolic picture of a life born entirely of immense hardship, but you know the stark, unvarnished truth far better than any priest. This, you inwardly reflect, isn't simplicity at all. It's actually hard-won, crucial knowledge meticulously passed down through countless generations, each plant's specific use and precise identification memorized through vivid, cautionary tales of who it saved from starvation and, tragically, who it fatally poisoned. When the learned priest preaches sanctimoniously about Adam eating bread only by the sweat of his brow, you defiantly bite your tongue, resisting the urge to speak. Adam, you keenly understand, clearly never had to painstakingly distinguish between edible chickweed and its deadly, almost identical look-alike, a dangerous daily gamble. It's a profound and enduring testament to their unwavering resilience, their innate practical wisdom, and the constant, precarious, and often dangerous dance they perform daily with the unpredictable natural world, just to secure their very survival and carve out a meager existence. The distinct sound is absolutely unmistakable, the desperate, piercing squawk of a chicken meeting its inevitable, often brutal fate. Your head instinctively jerks up from where you are diligently stirring the meager fire, your heart momentarily quickening. Old Marta, with a mixture of necessity and perhaps a heavy heart, has finally done it. She sacrificed one of her precious laying hens, and now the entire struggling village collectively salivates with an almost visceral longing at the tantalizing thought of actually tasting real meat. You haven't tasted chicken since, well, you honestly can't quite remember. It's been such an incredibly long time, a testament to its rarity. This isn't just about the simple act of consuming a meal. It's a truly rare, profoundly communal event, a fleeting glimpse of something genuinely special and luxurious in a life perpetually defined by gnawing scarcity, a momentary, blissful lifting of the constant, oppressive hunger that usually dominates every waking hour. As the rich, savory scent of roasting fowl slowly drifts tantalizingly through the small, humble settlement, children miraculously appear like hopeful, eager shadows at Marta's humble door, their wide eyes sparkling with unconcealed anticipation. She gently yet firmly shoos them away, but not before generously handing out the tough, somewhat stringy giblets, a peasant's rudimentary version of highly prized candy, a small, chewy treat to temporarily tide them over until their next meager meal. You, in turn, gratefully receive a single, precious wing in exchange for 2 eggs from your own dwindling, carefully guarded stash. It's barely a single mouthful, a mere morsel, but you will meticulously make it last, savoring every single fiber, every tiny bit of flavor. This profound act of sharing, even with such incredibly meager portions, powerfully highlights the strong, unspoken, yet deeply ingrained bonds within the village, a silent pact of mutual support and collective survival in the relentless, unyielding face of constant and pervasive hardship that binds them together. Here's the stark, brutal economics of medieval meat. That scrawny, often underfed chicken represents far more than just a fleeting meal. It embodies a complete, intricate, economic cycle designed for absolute maximization of resources. Its precious bones will be painstakingly boiled into a thin, yet nourishing broth for an entire week, meticulously extending its value and extracting every last nutrient. Its feet, yes, even the humble feet, will be added to the pottage, contributing a gelatinous body and ensuring absolutely nothing, not a single part, is wasted from the precious creature. Even the feathers, seemingly insignificant, won't go to waste, meticulously stuffed into bedding for vital warmth during cold nights or diligently traded to the fletcher for essential arrow fletchings, a truly valuable commodity in a time of constant conflict. Historians still passionately debate whether peasants were simply ingeniously resourceful or just desperately thorough in their methods. The irrefutable answer is unequivocally both. This extreme, unwavering resourcefulness wasn't a mere choice or preference. It was an absolute, fundamental requirement for sheer survival, meticulously squeezing every last bit of utility and value from every precious, hard-won resource. You meticulously gnaw your precious wing down to the absolute bone, then carefully crack it open to painstakingly suck out every last bit of rich marrow, extracting every possible calorie and nuance of nourishment. Around you, other villagers do precisely the same, their tired faces momentarily illuminated and softened by the warm, flickering glow of the communal fire, sharing a rare moment of simple, profound pleasure. For this one fleeting evening, the entire village feels almost remarkably prosperous, enjoying a rare, cherished illusion of temporary abundance. Someone, with uncharacteristic generosity, produces a skin of actual cider, real cider, not the customary watered-down daily ration, and it gets passed around the circle with a rare, joyful liberality. These precious moments of communal feasting, however small and infrequent, were absolutely vital for maintaining morale, offering a brief, much-needed escape from the relentless daily grind and significantly strengthening the crucial social ties that held their fragile communities together. But the harsh reality inevitably intrudes by the cold, gray light of morning. The fleeting delight of the chicken is long gone, vanished, but the relentless back-breaking work is not. As you wearily trudge to the sprawling fields, your stomach already instinctively misses the novelty of meat, the brief, intense satisfaction it so momentarily brought. The Lord's vast, sprawling forest teems with plump deer just beyond the tantalizing tree line, a forbidden yet alluring sight. But the brutal act of poaching means facing the excruciating loss of a hand if you are ever caught, a cruel permanent disfigurement. You glance longingly at the fat rabbits nibbling calmly at the field's edge and sigh, a deep exhalation of frustrated desire. Even if you were somehow fortunate enough to catch one, it technically, by feudal law, still inherently belongs to the Lord, another ever-present symbol of the omnipresent, suffocating feudal authority that dictates your every move. This stark, infuriating contrast between abundant wildlife just out of reach and your perpetually empty, aching stomach serves as a constant, bitter reminder of the Lord's absolute, unwavering power over every single aspect of your life and your very livelihood. There's a profound and historically significant reason why peasant revolts so frequently and violently erupted over restrictive hunting rights. When the terrifying difference between mere survival and agonizing starvation precariously hangs on the fate of just a few stolen hares or a single deer, the Lord's harsh, arbitrary laws begin to feel like an utterly unbearable cruelty, driving desperate, starving people to incredibly desperate, often violent measures. You've heard chilling whispers of other distant villages, where exceptionally bold souls daringly sneak out with makeshift snares under the concealing cover of darkness, risking their very life and limb for a precious taste of forbidden meat. Their rare, smoked meat often trades for triple the price of grain in the clandestine underground market, a testament to its immense life-sustaining value. You know you are not that brave. Yet, It's a powerful and enduring illustration of how fundamental human needs, when systematically denied and brutally suppressed, can ultimately ignite the smoldering fires of widespread rebellion and social upheaval. The ghost of the chicken's flavor lingers persistently through the entire week as you carefully stir thin bone broth into your daily pottage, hoping to capture even a faint, elusive hint of that fleeting, cherished flavor. The memory of the taste slowly fades day by day, becoming more distant until it's merely imagination seasoning your bowl, a truly ephemeral ghost of a meal. But tonight, as you lie restlessly awake, listening to your stomach growl, a familiar, constant companion, you dream not of elaborate, unattainable feasts, but of something far simpler, yet infinitely more desirable. A single, perfect bite of actual meat, hot and gloriously greasy, and, most importantly, completely, utterly yours. This lingering, powerful desire, this visceral craving for even the smallest, most basic indulgence, speaks volumes about the constant, gnawing hunger that defined and overshadowed their entire lives, transforming even the simplest culinary pleasure into a profound, almost unattainable luxury. This relentless, cyclical experience of profound scarcity, punctuated by fleeting, rare moments of perceived abundance, and then inevitably followed by renewed, agonizing hunger, was the brutal norm for medieval peasants. Their lives were a constant, precarious negotiation with the unpredictable forces of nature and the unyielding demands of feudal authority, where every single calorie was hard-won through immense toil, and every meager morsel of food was incredibly precious and cherished. The brief presence of the chicken, while quickly consumed and long gone, leaves a lasting impression, a potent memory that fuels their incredible resilience and perpetually keeps the faint, vital spark of hope flickering and alive amidst the overwhelming darkness. Considering their lives, what single luxury from your own modern existence would you personally find most incredibly difficult to give up if you were suddenly transported back to this harsh, demanding medieval reality? The stream's surface shimmers as you crouch at its edge, your fingers numb from the cold, swift-flowing water. You've been here since the pre-dawn hush, wrapped in a thin cloak against the morning chill, patiently waiting for the telltale flicker of silver beneath the murky surface. Fishing isn't just a pastime here. It's a delicate, high-stakes dance with the Lord's unforgiving laws, a calculated risk taken on an empty stomach. These precious waters technically belong to him, a source of potential revenue or recreation for his own table. But everyone in the village knows the Lord's bailiff won't patrol this quiet stretch until well after noon, preoccupied with other duties or perhaps still recovering from a night of ale. You just need one decent catch, just enough to make a difference, before his heavy boots mark the path. This quiet morning vigil, endured through biting cold and anxious anticipation, is a profound testament to the ingenuity and calculated risk-taking absolutely required to survive in such a harsh, controlled world, bending the stringent rules, just enough to feed your family without incurring the Lord's swift and often brutal wrath. It's a silent act of defiance, a small reclaiming of agency in a life overwhelmingly dictated by others. A sudden, jarring tug on your crude fishing line sends your heart racing, a jolt of pure adrenaline coursing through your veins. You quickly pull up, revealing a tiny minnow, barely the length of your thumb, its scales shimmering dully in the growing light. It's truly not much on its own, a disappointing catch after such a long wait, but thrown into the simmering pot with some foraged wild leeks and perhaps a few meager grains, it'll at least make the thin broth taste like something substantial, adding a whisper of essential flavor and the illusion of a meal. The real prize, the dream catch, would be a plump, elusive eel, fat, slippery, and packed with enough vital calories to make the back-breaking work of catching them worthwhile. A true energy boost desperately needed for tomorrow's endless toil. Every catch, no matter how small, is a small, hard-won victory, a tiny addition to the day's meager, uncertain rations, and a reason to keep hoping for something more substantial, a symbol of perseverance against overwhelming odds. Here's something modern anglers might not even consider. Medieval fishing was as much about arduous patience as it was about complex politics. Monks up at the secluded abbey, with their vast resources and knowledge, have engineered elaborate, self-sustaining pond systems, carefully raising plump carp and large pike for their own tables and those of visiting dignitaries, enjoying a bounty you can only dream of. Meanwhile, villagers like you scrape by with whatever the wild stream grudgingly provides, often barely enough to survive. There are persistent rumors of daring nighttime raids on those well-stocked church ponds, of course, bold tales whispered in hushed tones around the crackling fire on cold evenings. Not that you'd know anything firsthand about such rebellious acts, of course. This stark contrast highlights the vast, unyielding economic and social inequalities of the age, where even basic access to natural resources like fish was tightly controlled by powerful institutions like the church and nobility, adding yet another deep layer of simmering resentment and quiet desperation among the common folk. You bait your hook again with a struggling earthworm squirming on the sharp point. A simple, timeless, yet remarkably effective technique. The method hasn't changed much in centuries. Simple linen lines, painstakingly handmade hooks crafted from bone or salvaged metal, and the occasional cleverly woven trap left in quiet eddies where the current slows. What's truly surprising, and often overlooked, is how incredibly valuable even the smallest fish become in this economy of scarcity. Salted and carefully dried, they're not just food, they're vital winter insurance, a precious reserve for the brutal lean months when other food sources dwindle. Fresh, they're a rare and highly sought-after currency, a highly tradable commodity that can be bartered for tools, a bit of extra grain, or even a favor. You've even seen marriages brokered over baskets of particularly fat trout, demonstrating the extraordinary value placed on every scrap of food, which could influence social standing, family alliances, and even one's future prospects in the village. It's a testament to the ingenuity born of necessity. The sun climbs higher in the sky, and with its ascent comes the escalating risk of discovery. You're about to pack up your meager gear when your line jerks violently, a strong, deeply satisfying pull that vibrates through the thin line. This time, it's undeniably a proper fish. A chubby bream, its scales catching the sunlight, that flops desperately on the muddy bank, a true prize indeed. You quickly stun it with a well-aimed stone, ending its struggle mercifully, your mouth already watering at the tantalizing thought of its crispy skin sizzling over the communal fire tonight, filling the air with a rare, delicious aroma. This is the precise moment you've been waiting for, the significant payoff for hours of enduring cold, anxious waiting, a tangible reward that will make a real, immediate difference to your family's evening meal, transforming it from meager sustenance to a rare feast. It's a brief, exhilarating triumph against the odds. But then you hear it, the unmistakable jingle of the bailiff's heavy keys, a harsh, metallic sound that sends a sudden, icy chill down your spine. Your heart leaps into your throat. The prized fish swiftly goes into your sack, the sack deftly disappears under your tunic, and suddenly you're very interested in meticulously examining the opposite bank. Feigning complete innocence with a carefully neutral expression, the bailiff eyes you suspiciously, his gaze lingering with an unspoken question, but thankfully moves on, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel path. Your heart doesn't stop pounding its frantic rhythm until he's well out of sight, the immediate danger momentarily past, leaving you breathless and trembling. This moment of intense fear and quick thinking underscores the constant, pervasive threat under which peasants lived, where even a simple, desperate act of fishing for survival could lead to severe, disproportionate punishment if caught, a reminder of the ever-present sword of feudal justice hanging over their heads. Back at your humble cottage, the bream sizzles in the makeshift pan over the smoldering embers, its skin crisping beautifully and filling the entire cramped air with a tantalizing, almost forgotten aroma of true sustenance. The inviting smell draws neighbors, their eyes wide and their memories suddenly excellent regarding favors they've done you, their subtle hints for a share of the precious bounty. You share reluctantly, of course. This is too valuable to hoard. Completely a precious gift from the river that, by custom and unspoken rule, must be acknowledged and distributed, maintaining social harmony. As you pick the last sweet meat from the bones, savoring every single morsel, a rare luxury, you make a mental note of where the stream bends deepest, where the shadows linger longest, and where the current is just right. Tomorrow's another day, another dawn of uncertainty, and who knows, maybe the fish will be biting again, even before the bailiff stirs from his slumber. This relentless cycle of calculated risk, hard-won reward, and constant vigilance defines their intimate, often adversarial relationship with nature and the oppressive feudal system. Every meal is a testament to their unwavering resilience, their profound instinctual knowledge of the land's secrets, and their sheer willingness to push the boundaries of what is allowed to simply survive. It truly makes you appreciate the incredible ease with which we acquire our food today, without the constant, terrifying threat of legal repercussions, public shame, or physical punishment. What natural resource in your local area do you think would have been most valuable, most sought after to a medieval peasant struggling for survival in such a challenging era? The cow's warm udder feels soft and familiar under your calloused fingers as you rhythmically squeeze, the steady, comforting ping of fresh milk hitting the bottom of the wooden pail marking the morning's slow but steady progress. This isn't just a simple act of milking, it's a profound, direct connection to your family's most invaluable treasure, not the scrawny, occasional chicken, not the meager, ever-dwindling grain stores, but this aging, reliable brown cow whose given name you've long forgotten, yet whose rich, nourishing milk never ever fails to sustain you. One single bad season, a cruel twist of fate, could tragically wipe out all your carefully cultivated crops, leading to starvation. But as long as Bessie, was that truly her name, you wonder, keeps producing her vital milk, you and your family will, miraculously, survive. She is the steadfast anchor of your humble household, a living, breathing, and utterly indispensable insurance policy against the ever-present threat of starvation. A constant source of life-giving sustenance. The very first sip of fresh milk is an almost impossibly sweet sensation, still wonderfully warm from the cow and delightfully frothy at the edges. A fleeting, cherished luxury that vanishes all too quickly. By noon, however, it will inevitably sour slightly in the oppressive summer heat, taking on that familiar sharp tang that makes the children grimace with distaste, yet they still dutifully drink every last drop anyway, for the concept of waste is utterly unimaginable in your world of scarcity. You will meticulously use every single drop, some for immediate, refreshing drinking, some for carefully curdling into precious cheese, and the remainder patiently left to separate into thin, watery whey and truly valuable rich cream. This immediate consumption and ingenious, multifaceted processing are born entirely of desperate necessity, powerfully highlighting a level of profound appreciation for every drop that is almost entirely lost in our modern, over-refrigerated, and excessively abundant world. Here's a profound truth that modern dairy lovers, accustomed to their endless choices, rarely ever pause to consider. Medieval peasants were, by sheer necessity, essentially walking chemistry sets when it came to processing milk. Without any form of refrigeration, you have, through generations of painstaking trial and error, completely mastered the intricate art of milk transformation, a vital survival skill carefully passed down through countless generations. That single, precious bucket of raw milk magically becomes three distinct essential things by sundown. A bracing cup of tangy buttermilk for tonight's meager meal, a firm round of fresh cheese meticulously hanging in a cloth to drain its excess liquid, and a small precious pat of butter laboriously churned from the thick cream. And the whey, that watery byproduct, that goes directly into tomorrow's bread dough, because absolutely nothing, no scrap, goes to waste when the ever-present specter of gnawing hunger is always just one poor harvest away. It's an incredible, vivid example of deeply sustainable living, driven by absolute, unyielding necessity and an intricate, intuitive understanding of natural biochemical processes. The demanding village cheesemaker, a stern arbiter of quality, eyes your freshly made curds critically, her gaze piercing. "Not enough salt," she mutters gruffly, a terse professional assessment that belies the inherent generosity of her act. But she takes them anyway, accepting them in fair exchange for a precious sliver of her own expertly aged pungent wheal. This hard cheese, she knows, is the real, invaluable currency, a tangible form of stored wealth that can miraculously last through the long, harsh winter months, its rich flavor growing sharper and more complex with each passing month, a testament to time and patience. There's persistent talk of a distant monastery, located a good 2 days' arduous walk away, where the reclusive brothers supposedly produce something truly miraculous called blue cheese. But to your pragmatic mind, that peculiar concept sounds either magically ethereal or mildly poisonous, a foreign exotic delicacy entirely beyond your immediate comprehension and daily reality. This intricate bartering system profoundly underscores the vital importance of close-knit community and specialized, often hereditary, skill in a world completely devoid of widespread monetary exchange. Children, with their boundless energy and innocent curiosity, cluster eagerly around you as you meticulously skim the precious cream from the top of the milk, their small fingers darting in mischievously to steal tiny, illicit tastes when they think you're not actively looking. You wisely pretend not to notice their innocent transgressions. Let them have this small, fleeting joy, this momentary, unexpected sweetness that is so rare in their lives. After all, the Lord's incessant taxes will inevitably claim a full third of your total dairy output anyway, meticulously measured out in precise, often unfair weights by his stern steward who always, inexplicably, seems to favor his own rigged scales, leaving tragically little enough for your own struggling family. These small, subtle acts of quiet defiance, the tiny moments of indulgence stolen for the children, are poignant examples of finding precious pockets of joy amidst pervasive hardship and living under the ever-present oppressive shadow of the Lord's insatiable demands. As evening eventually falls, casting long shadows across your humble dwelling, you meticulously nibble your precious cheese sliver, treating it like a noble lord savoring rare exotic sweets, a tiny yet profoundly satisfying luxury for your tired, aching body. The rich, complex flavor is distinctly barnyard and intensely salty, and something else indescribably rich and deeply satisfying, the concentrated essence of every verdant summer meadow Bessie ever grazed upon, a taste of the very land itself. It's worth every single hour tirelessly spent tending to her needs, every heavy pail carefully carried, every precise rotation of the aging cheeses within your cool, dark storage crock. This isn't just a simple piece of cheese. It's the culmination of many arduous months of relentless labor, a potent taste of the nurturing land, and a powerful, enduring symbol of your family's unwavering resilience and their continued, arduous survival in a challenging world. When the small, flickering fire eventually burns low, casting dancing shadows, you carefully stir a generous splash of soured milk into your daily pottage, a common, time-honored trick to enhance and deepen its otherwise monotonous flavor. The sharp, welcome tang of the soured milk delightfully cuts through the relentless monotony of the grains, adding a welcome zing, a fleeting yet vivid reminder that survival, even in its most basic forms, sometimes miraculously comes with small graces, unexpected pleasures discovered in the most unlikely and humble of places. Outside, the beloved cow lows softly and contentedly in her simple pen, a comforting, familiar sound in the oppressive darkness, a sound of life continuing. Her steady, unwavering presence is a constant assurance, a silent promise of another morning, another chance to milk, and another precious day of continued life, ensuring the cycle continues. You make a firm mental note to finally ask around the village about her true name tomorrow, a small personal act of deeper connection to the invaluable creature that tirelessly sustains your entire family. This incredibly close, intimate, and often spiritual relationship with their animals, with the fertile land they worked, and with the very fundamental processes of creating food from raw materials, profoundly defined the medieval peasant's entire existence. It was undeniably a life characterized by constant, back-breaking work, pervasive hardship, and an almost spiritual, profound connection to the raw, demanding natural world, a stark and often shocking contrast to our modern, often detached, and highly processed experience of food. What specific aspects of this deep self-sufficiency and intimate connection to production do you honestly think we, in our contemporary lives, could truly learn from and perhaps even incorporate today for a more fulfilling existence? The traveling merchant unfurls his cloth bundle with a magician's flourish, revealing tiny packets of what he claims are spices from the Orient. You lean in, despite yourself, drawn by the exotic allure. The golden powder could be saffron, or turmeric, or more likely, simply crushed marigold petals. The peppercorns look suspiciously like dried elderberries, hinting at local ingenuity rather than faraway lands. But when he names his price, a truly astronomical sum amounting to half a year's wages for a mere palmful, you can't help but laugh so hard you startle a nearby chicken. It's a stark reminder that true luxury in this era wasn't about extravagant taste, but about access to the rarest and most difficult to acquire goods, often at prices that would make a modern shopper faint. Back at your hearth, you reach for the real peasant spices, a fistful of garden herbs hung to dry last. Summer, their scent a comforting, familiar perfume. Rosemary crumbles between your fingers like fragrant dust, releasing its earthy aroma. Thyme and sage mingle in a cloth pouch that's more holes than fabric, a testament to its long use. This is your flavor arsenal, simple, local, and most importantly, free. When the pottage needs perking up, in goes a pinch of this rough mix. It won't transport you to Constantinople, but it'll certainly make boiled turnips slightly less tragic, adding a much-needed layer of complexity to otherwise bland fare. Here's the open secret of medieval peasant seasoning. Most exotic flavors were clever fakes, a testament to the ingenuity of local peddlers and the desperation for a taste of the extraordinary. That pepper you traded 2 eggs for last winter. It was probably nothing more than ground mustard seed and ash berries, cleverly disguised. The cinnamon the peddler swore came from distant Arabia, more likely just tree bark from the Lord's own forest, stripped and dried. Historians still debate whether peasants knew they were being duped or simply played along to feel fancy, to believe in a little bit of magic. You know the truth. Hunger makes excellent seasoning on its own, dulling the senses to any imperfections. You crush some garlic between stones, its pungent aroma clearing your sinuses with its sharp, invigorating scent. This is the real peasant gold, strong enough to make stale bread interesting, giving it a much-needed kick, and potent enough to cover the taste of meat that's questionable, perhaps a day or two past its prime. The village wise woman, a fount of ancient knowledge, claims it wards off plague too, which may or may not be true, but you rub it on your chest during winter anyway, just in case. Can't hurt, right? It's a fundamental staple, offering both flavor and a glimmer of hope for good health. Children giggle as you hand them stalks of green garlic to chew like candy, their young faces lighting up with delight. Their breath will scare off predators for weeks, you joke, but at least they'll get some vital vitamins, crucial for their developing bodies in a diet often lacking fresh produce. You tuck a few onion bulbs into your pouch, nature's original. Flavor bombs, equally good in hearty stews for depth of taste or as makeshift medicine when boiled into syrups for coughs and colds. These simple vegetables are powerhouses of both nutrition and flavor, truly indispensable to peasant life. As evening falls, you stir the pot with a wooden spoon worn smooth by generations of use, each groove telling a story of countless meals. The scent of your herb mix rises with the steam, blending harmoniously with the wood smoke from the hearth in a way that almost makes your humble meal feel like a feast. It's a comforting, familiar aroma that signifies sustenance and a brief respite from labor. Outside, the wind carries whispers of banquets in the distant manor house, where real pepper seasons every extravagant dish, a stark contrast to your simple fare. You shrug and take another bite of your seasoned pottage. Their spices may come on ships from exotic, far-flung lands, requiring immense wealth and perilous journeys to acquire. But yours come from the rich, fertile earth, just outside your door, picked with your own hands, tended with care, and imbued with the knowledge passed down through your family. And in its own way, that's a kind of magic too. A quiet, enduring magic of self-sufficiency, resilience, and a deep connection to the land that provides for you, day after day. This reliance on local, foraged, and homegrown flavors speaks volumes about the ingenuity and adaptability of medieval peasants. They didn't need grand ships or vast empires to bring taste to their tables. They found it in the very soil beneath their feet. It forces us to consider how much we've outsourced our own connection to food and flavor. What small everyday magic do you find in your own kitchen that might surprise someone from the past? The sun is finally dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a beautiful but fleeting spectacle. As the last sliver of light disappears, the chill in the air deepens, reminding you that the day's toil is nearing its end. You rub your aching back, feeling the familiar knots of muscle fatigue that have become a constant companion. It's not just the physical exhaustion that settles in, but a mental weariness, a profound sense of having poured every ounce of your being into the unforgiving earth. Yet, as the stars begin to prickle through the darkening sky, there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing you've survived another day, a testament to your unyielding endurance. The smoky scent of the communal fire draws you towards its flickering warmth. Around it, the faces of your neighbors, etched with similar lines of fatigue, are illuminated by the dancing flames. This isn't just a place to warm your hands. It's the heart of the village, where stories are shared, worries are whispered, and the bonds of community are strengthened. The laughter, though rare and often muted by exhaustion, is a precious sound, a reminder that even in hardship, human connection thrives. It's in these shared moments of quiet camaraderie that the weight of the day, however heavy, feels momentarily lighter, reminding you that you are not alone in this relentless struggle. Here's a medieval insight that often gets overlooked. The night wasn't for rest in the way we understand it. Many peasants practiced what historians call segmented sleep, waking up in the middle of the night for an hour or two to tend to chores, pray, or simply reflect. This was a time of quiet contemplation, a brief respite from the demanding labor of daylight. Imagine lying awake in the profound darkness, with only the sounds of the night for company, your mind free to wander. It forces us to consider how much our own rhythms of life are dictated by artificial light and structured schedules, rather than the natural cycles of day and night. As you settle onto your straw mattress, the hard-packed earth still cold beneath, you pull the rough woolen blanket higher, hoping for what little warmth it can offer. Sleep doesn't come easily. Your body aches, your mind replays the day's endless tasks, and the constant gnawing of hunger is a familiar companion. There are no soft pillows or plush duvets here, just the raw reality of a life lived close to the bone. This isn't just about discomfort. It's about a deep, pervasive weariness that permeates every fiber of your being, a physical manifestation of the constant struggle for survival. The sounds of the night are your lullaby, the distant howl of a wolf, the chirping of crickets, the soft rustle of straw as you shift, trying to find a more comfortable position. Sometimes you hear the muffled cough of a child, or the soft murmur of a neighbor turning in their own sleep, a reminder of the fragility of life. These are the natural sounds of a world without electricity, without the hum of machines or the distant traffic. It's a profound quietness that allows you to hear the subtle whispers of the wind, the rustling of the leaves, and the ancient rhythms of the earth itself, connecting you to a world that hums with its own organic life. Dreams, when they come, are often simple: a plump loaf of white bread, a pot full of rich stew, or fields of grain stretching endlessly under a benevolent sun. These aren't just dreams of indulgence, they are dreams of abundance, of relief from the constant struggle, a subconscious yearning for security and ease. Sometimes you dream of a rare feast day, the sweet taste of honeyed bread lingering on your tongue, a vivid memory of a fleeting luxury. These dreams are a form of escape, a mental refuge from the harsh realities of waking life, offering a brief glimpse into a world where hunger is a distant worry. As the first faint light of dawn begins to paint the eastern sky, you stir, the cold seeping into your bones, rousing you from your fitful slumber. There's no alarm clock here, just the subtle shift in the light, the distant crow of a rooster, and the internal clock of a body honed by necessity. Another day beckons, another cycle of labor, another opportunity to coax sustenance from the stubborn earth. The weariness is still there, but so too is the quiet resolve, the unyielding determination to face whatever the new day brings. knowing that survival depends on it. And so, the cycle continues. The medieval peasant's life was an unbroken chain of labor, resilience, and an intimate connection to the land and its seasons. It lacked the comforts and conveniences we take for granted, but it fostered a deep appreciation for the fundamental necessities of life. Their story reminds us of the profound human capacity for endurance, ingenuity, and finding moments of meaning and connection, even in the most challenging circumstances. What do you think is the most valuable lesson we can glean from the daily lives of medieval peasants in our modern world? The sun is finally dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a beautiful but fleeting spectacle that marks the close of another arduous day. As the last sliver of light disappears, the chill in the air deepens, reminding you that the day's relentless toil is finally nearing its end. You rub your aching back, feeling the familiar knots of muscle fatigue that have become a constant companion, a physical manifestation of your daily struggle. It's not just the physical exhaustion that settles in, but a profound mental weariness, a sense of having poured every ounce of your being into the unforgiving earth. Yet, as the first stars begin to prickle through the darkening sky, there's a quiet, deep-seated satisfaction in knowing you've survived another day, a silent testament to your unyielding endurance and the strength of your spirit. The yatu, smoky scent of the communal fire draws you towards its flickering warmth like a moth to a flame, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Around it, the faces of your neighbors, etched with similar lines of fatigue and worry, are illuminated by the dancing flames, creating a tableau of shared hardship. This isn't just a place to warm your hands or dry your damp clothes. It's the undisputed heart of the village, where stories are shared in hushed tones, worries are whispered between sips of weak ale, and the vital bonds of community are strengthened through shared silence and understanding. The rare laughter, though often muted by sheer exhaustion, is a precious sound, a reminder that even in the deepest hardship, human connection thrives, offering comfort and resilience in equal measure. Here's a medieval insight that often gets overlooked in our fast-paced world. The night wasn't for rest in the singular, uninterrupted way we understand it today. Many peasants practiced what historians call segmented sleep, a fascinating pattern where they would wake up in the middle of the night for an hour or two to tend to chores, perhaps pray, or simply reflect on the day and the challenges ahead. This was a time of quiet contemplation, a brief, precious respite from the demanding physical labor of daylight. Imagine lying awake in the profound darkness, with only the natural sounds of the night for company, your mind free to wander. It forces us to consider how much our own modern rhythms of life are dictated by artificial light and rigidly structured schedules, rather than the intuitive natural cycles of day and night that govern their world. As you settle onto your straw mattress, the hard-packed earth still cold beneath despite the thin layer of straw, you pull the rough woolen blanket higher, hoping for what little warmth it can offer against the pervasive chill. Sleep doesn't come easily. Your entire body aches with a deep, persistent throb. Your mind relentlessly replays the day's endless, repetitive tasks, and the constant, familiar gnawing of hunger is a familiar companion, a subtle ache in your stomach. There are no soft pillows or plush duvets here, just the raw, unvarnished reality of a life lived close to the bone, where comfort is a luxury rarely afforded. This isn't just about fleeting physical discomfort. It's about a deep, pervasive weariness that permeates every fiber of your being, a profound physical manifestation of the constant, unending struggle for survival. The sounds of the night are your unique, rustic lullaby, the distant, haunting howl of a wolf echoing through the forest, the rhythmic chirping of crickets outside the hovel, the soft rustle of straw as you shift trying to find a more comfortable position on your meager bed. Sometimes in the profound quiet, you hear the muffled cough of a child in a neighboring dwelling, or the soft murmur of a neighbor turning restlessly in their own sleep, a reminder of the fragility and interconnectedness of life in the village. These are the natural sounds of a world without electricity, without the intrusive hum of machines or the distant roar of traffic. It's a profound quietness that allows you to truly hear the subtle whispers of the wind, the rustling of the leaves on nearby trees, and the ancient, unchanging rhythms of the earth itself, connecting you to a world that hums with its own organic life and timeless pulse. Dreams, when they mercifully come, are often profoundly simple, yet intensely vivid. A plump, perfectly baked loaf of white bread, so different from your daily rye. A pot brimming full of rich, thick stew, overflowing with meat and vegetables. Or endless fields of golden grain stretching limitlessly under a benevolent sun, promising an unheard-of bounty. These aren't just dreams of fleeting indulgence. They are powerful, subconscious yearnings for abundance, for profound relief from the constant grinding struggle, a deep desire for security and ease that rarely touches waking life. Sometimes you even dream of a rare feast day, the sweet taste of honeyed bread lingering on your tongue, a vivid, almost tangible memory of a fleeting luxury that provides a momentary escape from hunger. These dreams are a vital form of mental refuge, offering a brief glimpse into a world where hunger is a distant worry. As the first faint, pearlescent light of dawn begins to paint the eastern sky, slowly chasing away the lingering darkness, you stir, the pervasive cold seeping into your bones, rousing you from your fitful slumber. There's no jarring alarm clock here, just the subtle, natural shift in the light, the distant, familiar crow of a rooster, and the internal clock of a body honed by necessity and decades of this daily routine. Another day beckons, another relentless cycle of labor, another opportunity to coax precious sustenance from the stubborn, unforgiving earth. The weariness is still there, a heavy cloak draped over your shoulders, but so too is the quiet, unbreakable resolve, the unyielding determination to face whatever the new day brings, knowing that your very survival depends on it. And so the timeless cycle continues, repeating with the seasons and the sun. The medieval peasant's life was an unbroken chain of arduous labor, profound resilience, and an intimate, often challenging connection to the land and its unchanging seasons. It undoubtedly lacked the myriad comforts and conveniences we take for granted in our modern existence, but in its very rigor, it fostered a deep, intrinsic appreciation for the fundamental necessities of life. Their story reminds us of the profound human capacity for sheer endurance, remarkable ingenuity, and the ability to find fleeting moments of meaning and genuine connection, even in the most challenging and unyielding circumstances. What do you think is the single most valuable lesson we can glean from the daily grinding lives of medieval peasants in our technologically advanced, yet often disconnected, modern world? With the new dawn comes the immediate call of the fields, a relentless summons that brooks no delay. Your first task, even before the sun fully clears the horizon, is to harness the oxen, their breath still steaming in the cool morning air. The wooden plow, heavy and unyielding, feels like an extension of your own aching arms as you guide it through the stubborn soil. Each furrow carved into the earth represents not just labor, but hope. The hope for a decent harvest, for enough food to last through the next winter, for the sheer survival of your family. It's a fundamental ritual, a primal connection to the land that dictates everything, embodying the essence of your existence as a tiller of the earth. The work is backbreaking, repetitive, and endless. Hour after hour, you walk behind the plow, your feet sinking into the freshly turned earth, your muscles burning with effort. The sun begins to climb, its warmth slowly turning into a searing heat that beats down on your exposed head. Sweat stings your eyes, and the thirst becomes a dull ache in your throat. There are no breaks for refreshment, no cool drinks, just the relentless rhythm of the work. You stop only when the oxen need a brief rest, catching your breath and wiping your brow with the back of a calloused hand, already anticipating the next stretch of unbroken labor. Here's an often unseen layer of medieval agriculture. It was a communal affair, a testament to the power of shared effort. While you work your strip of land, you're often side by side with your neighbors, their plows mirroring your own. There's a constant, unspoken camaraderie, a shared understanding of the sheer effort involved. Perhaps a brief exchange of words, a shared sigh of exhaustion, or a quiet nod of acknowledgement as the sun climbs higher. This collective labor, while mandated by the feudal system, also fostered strong community bonds, knowing that your survival and theirs, depended on everyone's contribution to the common goal of a successful harvest. Mid-morning brings a brief, almost imperceptible lull. You might share a piece of leftover hard bread with a neighbor or take a quick swig from a communal water skin, its contents often lukewarm and tasting faintly of the leather. This isn't a meal, but a brief pause, a way to stave off the worst. Pangs of hunger before the work resumes its relentless pace. The conversations are practical, focused on the soil, the weather, the condition of the crops, the endless worries that define their days. There's little time for idle chatter, as every moment spent not working is a moment when the demanding earth goes untended, potentially jeopardizing the vital harvest. The tools you use are simple, yet incredibly effective, refined, over centuries of necessity. The plow is wood and iron, heavy but durable. Your scythe, used later in the season for harvesting, has a blade sharpened meticulously with a whetstone you carry on your belt. These aren't just implements, they are extensions of your will, instruments through which you bend the earth to your needs. Maintaining them is a constant chore, requiring skill and dedication, for a broken tool could mean lost days of work, and lost days of work could mean hunger for your family. It's a testament to the ingenuity of their craftsmanship, relying on durability and simple mechanics. The weather, a constant, unpredictable force, looms large in every peasant's mind. A sudden drought can wither young shoots. A late frost can decimate early plantings. A hailstorm can flatten entire fields, wiping out months of labor in minutes. Every cloud in the sky is scrutinized, every change in the wind noted with a quiet anxiety. Your life is fundamentally at the mercy of these natural forces, with little to no recourse against their wrath. It's a humbling existence, one that forces a profound respect for the power of nature and a constant, quiet prayer for benevolent skies. By afternoon, the sun beats down mercilessly, and the air shimmers above the dusty fields. The effort required feels almost insurmountable, but you push through, driven by an inner fortitude born of necessity. You glance towards the distant manor house, a stark reminder of the Lord who claims a significant portion of your labor and harvest, a constant source of quiet resentment. Their lives of relative ease stand in stark contrast to your unending toil, a division of labor that feels profoundly unfair but utterly unchangeable. It's a reminder of the feudal burden, adding a layer of psychological weight to the physical strain of the day. As the sun begins its slow descent once more, casting long shadows across the furrowed fields, you unhitch the oxen, their great bodies steaming from the effort. Another strip of land has been turned, another step towards the vital harvest. The day ends not with celebration, but with quiet exhaustion, a profound physical and mental depletion. Yet, walking back to your hovel, amidst the twilight hush and the promise of a hard-earned rest, there's a deep, primal satisfaction in knowing you have earned your bread by the sweat of your brow, a testament to an indomitable spirit. What aspect of their work ethic do you think would be most challenging for us to adapt to today? Even after the arduous toil in the fields, the day is far from over when you return to your humble hovel. As darkness descends, the flickering light of the hearth becomes the center of your universe, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, simmering pottage, and the familiar, earthy smell of your family. There's a comforting rhythm to these evening hours, a shift from the unforgiving demands of the land to the intimate, albeit cramped, confines of your home. It's a time for quiet maintenance, for mending and making, ensuring that the fragile infrastructure of your daily life remains intact, ready for another dawn. Your hands, calloused and rough from the day's labor, now turn to finer, though no less essential tasks. Perhaps you mend a tear in a worn tunic, stitching diligently by the dim firelight, ensuring its longevity for the cold months ahead. Or maybe you sharpen a dull tool, painstakingly grinding the blade against a whetstone, knowing its effectiveness directly impacts your productivity tomorrow. Children huddle nearby, engaged in their own quiet tasks, perhaps learning to braid straw or sorting dried herbs. Every member of the household, regardless of age, contributes to the ongoing work of survival, their collective effort weaving the fabric of daily life. Here's a surprising truth about medieval peasant homes. They were bustling centers of domestic industry, far removed from our modern division of labor. There was no distinct workplace separate from the home. Spinning wool into thread, weaving fabric, making simple tools, curing meats, preparing food for storage. All these essential activities happened right here under this very roof. Imagine your living room serving as your workshop, your kitchen, and your bedroom all at once. This constant, integrated activity meant that every moment was productive, blurring the lines between labor and leisure, and making the home a truly self-sufficient unit in the face of external uncertainties. The concept of privacy, as we understand it, simply didn't exist. Your hovel might house not just your immediate family, but perhaps elderly relatives or even a few farm animals during the harshest winter nights, seeking shared warmth. The air would be thick with bodies, breathing, sleeping, living in close proximity. This constant closeness fostered an undeniable sense of community and mutual reliance, but also meant very little personal space or quiet solitude. It forces us to consider how much our modern emphasis on individual space and privacy might be a relatively recent luxury rather than a universal human need. Evenings were often a time for passing down vital knowledge. Your elders might tell stories of their own experiences, imparting wisdom about planting seasons, weather patterns, or the healing properties of certain plants. These weren't just bedtime tales. They were living textbooks, crucial for survival, ensuring that the accumulated knowledge of generations was passed seamlessly to the next. The children, huddled around the fire, absorbed these lessons with rapt attention, knowing their future depended on remembering every detail. This oral tradition was the primary means of education, making every family gathering a classroom. Food preparation, even for the evening meal, was an ongoing process. The pottage from earlier might be reheated, perhaps with a handful of foraged greens added to stretch it further. Every scrap was precious, nothing wasted. You might be grinding a small amount of grain for tomorrow's gruel or soaking dried beans for a future meal. The rhythm of chopping, stirring, and simmering filled the small space, a comforting counterpoint to the day's outdoor labor. It's a stark reminder that preparing food was a constant, fundamental activity, driven by the relentless cycle of hunger and the need to maximize every available calorie. As the fire slowly dwindles to embers, casting dancing shadows that lengthen and merge into the surrounding darkness, the village outside falls into a profound quietness. Only the occasional distant howl of a dog or the rustle of leaves in the wind breaks the silence. You bank the coals carefully, preserving their warmth for the morning's rekindling, an ancient, thrifty ritual. Before sleep, a brief, whispered prayer for protection and a good harvest is offered, a plea to whatever deities might listen, a silent acknowledgement of your dependence on forces beyond your control. It's a moment of reflection, a quiet surrender to the cycle of night and day. Finally, you settle down for the night, the exhausted sleep of hard labor pulling you under. Your hovel, though humble and often uncomfortable by modern standards, is your sanctuary, a place of safety and communal warmth against the harshness of the outside world. It's a powerful reminder that home isn't defined by grand architecture or luxurious amenities, but by the presence of family, the security it provides, and the shared struggle within its walls. What aspect of this close communal living do you think would be most surprising or challenging for someone from our time? Sickness is not just an inconvenience in the medieval peasant's world. It's a terrifying specter, a constant threat that can swiftly turn into a death sentence. A simple fever, a persistent cough, or a festering wound from a stray splinter can quickly escalate into something far more sinister, given the complete lack of modern medical understanding or readily available remedies. There are no doctors, no pharmacies, no sterile environments. Every illness is a battle fought with meager knowledge, desperate hope, and the innate strength of your own body, a stark reminder of humanity's vulnerability in the face of disease. The fear of contagion, often misunderstood, looms large over every cough and sneeze, especially when a more virulent plague sweeps through the village. When illness strikes someone in your family, the first recourse is often the village wise woman. She's not a doctor, but a repository of generations of herbal knowledge, part healer, part mystic. She might offer a strong brew of willow bark for fever, or a poultice of comfrey for a sprain, murmuring ancient incantations as she works. Her remedies are often steeped in superstition, mixing practical knowledge with a deep belief in spiritual intervention. While some treatments may offer relief, others are ineffective or even harmful, a testament to the trial and error nature of their medical practice. You trust her, for she is the only hope, the last line of defense against the relentless march of disease. Here's a brutal reality. Hygiene was a luxury, not a given, and its absence played a significant role in the spread of illness. Clean water was often scarce, bathing was infrequent, and basic sanitation was practically non-existent. Imagine living in close quarters with animals, with waste disposal being rudimentary at best, and no understanding of germs. This constant exposure to pathogens meant that even minor cuts or scrapes could easily become infected, leading to debilitating illness or even death. It's a stark contrast to our sterile modern lives and highlights how fundamental public health infrastructure is, something we often take for granted. Children are particularly vulnerable, a heartbreaking truth of medieval life. Diseases that we now vaccinate against, like measles or mumps, could sweep through a village, leaving a trail of devastation. Infant mortality rates were shockingly high, a common sorrow etched onto the faces of parents. Every child who survives to adulthood is a miracle, a testament to resilience and perhaps a stroke of pure luck. The loss of a child is a sorrow that permeates the entire community, a stark reminder of life's precariousness and the constant, heartbreaking battle against unseen enemies. Prayer and faith often served as a primary form of comfort and even a perceived treatment for illness. When all earthly remedies failed, the village priest would be summoned, offering prayers for healing, performing rituals, and sometimes even administering last rites. People believed that illness was often a punishment for sin, making spiritual intervention as important as any physical remedy. This deep intertwining of faith and healing provided solace, even if it didn't always provide a cure, reinforcing the community's reliance on the church for both spiritual and temporal well-being during times of crisis. The concept of a contagion was understood in a very rudimentary way, often associated with foul air or divine displeasure rather than invisible microbes. When a serious illness swept through the village, people might isolate the sick or flee to the forests, often to no avail. The sheer speed and devastation of epidemics like the Black Death illustrate how unprepared they were to deal with widespread disease, leading to mass panic and societal breakdown. It's a chilling reminder of how vulnerable humanity can be when faced with an invisible enemy, and how much our scientific understanding protects us today. Recovery from illness when it happened was a slow and arduous process, often leaving the individual weakened and less able to perform their demanding labor. There was no convalescence period, no paid sick leave. You returned to the fields as soon as you could stand, driven by the sheer necessity of survival. A chronic illness could render you a burden, a tragic reality in a society where every healthy body was essential for the family's survival. It truly highlights the harsh realities of a world without a safety net, where personal well-being was inextricably linked to the ability to work. So while our modern pharmacies and hospitals are full of life-saving advancements, the medieval peasant faced sickness with a mix of folk wisdom, unwavering faith, and sheer brute resilience. Their lives were a constant negotiation with disease, a profound lesson in the fragility of existence and the incredible strength of the human spirit to endure against overwhelming odds. It makes you wonder, if stripped of all modern medicine, how would we truly cope with even a common cold today? Beyond the ceaseless toil and the ever-present threat of hunger and illness, life for the medieval peasant wasn't entirely devoid of moments of respite and simple pleasures. These were often tied to the rhythms of the church and the changing seasons, offering brief, cherished breaks from the relentless daily grind. Imagine the profound anticipation of a feast day after weeks of monotonous labor and meager rations. These occasions weren't just religious observations, but vital social gatherings, moments when the weight of existence was momentarily lifted, allowing for a collective breath and a reaffirmation of community bonds. The most significant breaks came with church feast days. While often associated with fasting, these days also brought the promise of communal gathering, and often a slightly better meal than usual. Christmas, Easter, and various saints' days broke the monotony of the week, offering a chance for villagers to put down their tools, attend Mass, and spend time with family and neighbors. These weren't simply religious duties. They were essential social events, providing a vital psychological release from constant labor and fostering a sense of shared identity and belonging within the tight-knit village structure. Here's an interesting aspect of these celebrations. Music and storytelling were central to medieval entertainment. Lacking formal schooling, villagers relied on oral traditions. Bards, or sometimes just a talented villager, would share epic tales of heroes and saints, or humorous fables, often accompanied by simple instruments like pipes or lutes. These stories weren't just for amusement. They reinforced cultural values, taught moral lessons, and provided a powerful link to their shared history and mythology. Imagine gathering around a crackling fire, completely absorbed in a story, with no screens or distractions, connecting through shared narrative. Dancing was another integral part of peasant festivities, a vibrant expression of joy and communal spirit. Simple folk dances, often performed in a circle or line, brought young and old together. While not as elaborate as courtly dances, they were full of energy and raw, uninhibited emotion, a physical release of pent-up energy and stress from weeks of arduous labor. These dances were more than just recreation. They were a form of social bonding, a way to build rapport and release tension, and to celebrate life, however challenging, with movement and shared merriment, reinforcing the deep connections within the village. Games and simple competitions also provided diversion. Children might play with wooden toys, simple balls, or engage in chasing games. Adults might test their strength in wrestling, matches, or their aim in archery, often for bragging rights rather than material prizes. These informal contests fostered a sense of healthy competition and provided opportunities for villagers to display their physical prowess and skill. Important attributes in their physically demanding lives. They were moments of lighthearted escape, allowing for a brief forgetfulness of the daily grind and a chance to simply enjoy themselves. Food, of course, played a central role in any celebration. While still simple by modern standards, a feast day might mean a larger portion of pottage, perhaps with some actual meat if the Lord was generous, or a rare treat like a piece of cheese or a fruit. The emphasis was on communal sharing, everyone bringing what little they had to contribute to the collective meal. The sheer joy of having slightly more to eat, shared with loved ones, was a luxury in itself, a profound experience that nourished not just the body, but also the spirit, making these infrequent gatherings truly memorable. Even outside of official feast days, small moments of simple pleasure could be found. A particularly beautiful sunset might draw a collective sigh of appreciation. The first warm day of spring after a brutal winter could bring a wave of quiet relief. The successful birth of a new calf, or the blossoming of the first fruit tree, were small victories that brought genuine smiles. These aren't grand celebrations, but micro moments of joy, a testament to the human capacity to find beauty and hope even in the most challenging of circumstances, acknowledging the small graces that punctuate their arduous lives. So, while the medieval peasant's life was undeniably hard, it was not without its moments of light and connection. These infrequent bursts of celebration and simple pleasures were crucial for maintaining morale, fostering community, and providing the spiritual and emotional sustenance needed to face another relentless cycle of toil. Their ability to find joy in the smallest things serves as a powerful reminder for us today to appreciate the simple luxuries that often go unnoticed in our own busy lives. What simple pleasure do you think you'd cherish most if you lived as a medieval peasant? Beyond the physical toil of daily labor, the medieval peasant's world was shaped by the enduring presence of the church. It wasn't merely a place of worship. It was their primary connection to a larger universe, both spiritual and moral. The church provided meaning, structure, and the rare opportunity for education. The village priest, usually of humble background himself, held immense influence. He baptized children, married couples, and buried the dead, guiding souls through every stage of life. His sermons, often spoken first in Latin and then translated into the local tongue, served as the principal source of news and moral instruction. Through his words, villagers heard tales from distant lands, warnings of sin, and visions of heaven. Though many couldn't understand the liturgy fully, they listened intently, knowing that this sacred voice connected their tiny village to something vast, divine, and eternal beyond their fields and boundaries. Mass was the heart of communal life, a weekly ritual that bound the village together. Even when the Latin incantations went largely uncomprehended, the sensory richness of the ceremony carried meaning. Chanted prayers echoed through the stone walls, incense curled in the air, bells rang out, and the priest's vestments shimmered with solemn symbolism. Attending Mass was more than a religious duty. It was a rare communal event, a pause in their grueling routine and a moment of spiritual anchoring. It allowed peasants to gather, reflect, and reconnect with neighbors and God. For many, it was the only glimpse into a world beyond their immediate toil, as the priest relayed stories, lessons, and edicts from afar. In this shared space, villagers found comfort, solidarity, and a sense of belonging. The experience underscored a larger spiritual order in which their suffering had purpose and their presence was acknowledged by something greater. The church also played a critical role in maintaining moral discipline and social order. With no formal police or judiciary, the priest became a moral compass and local authority figure. He mediated disputes, advised villagers on ethical dilemmas, and enforced spiritual obligations: fasting, tithing, confession. The themes of sin, repentance, and salvation were ever present. Sermons vividly described the rewards of heaven and the torments of hell, reinforcing a worldview that intertwined morality with eternal consequence. Stained glass windows, icons, and murals further dramatized these lessons. These teachings weren't merely theological. They influenced daily decisions, shaping behavior through hope and fear. The church's framework provided clarity in a chaotic world, helping peasants navigate hardship and uncertainty. While the message could be strict or sobering, it also offered reassurance. There was a path, a divine structure, and even the lowliest soul could be saved through faith and obedience, sustaining a fragile sense of justice and purpose. Saints and relics offered peasants a tangible connection to the divine, bridging the chasm between earthly hardship and spiritual hope. Each village revered its patron saint, celebrated annually with processions, feasts, and communal joy. These holy figures were seen not as distant icons but as active protectors, interceding for rain, health, lost livestock, or successful childbirth. Their relics, believed to hold miraculous power, were venerated with deep reverence. While few, peasants could afford long pilgrimages. Those who did undertook them with fervent devotion, enduring hardship as a sacred journey of hope. Shrines were visited with tears, prayers, and offerings, binding the devotee to a network of faith that stretched across Christendom. In a life governed by unpredictability, disease, war, famine, the saints represented stability, compassion, and a heavenly ear. Their stories, often retold by priests or in song, gave villagers a divine ally in their struggles, a sense of cosmic justice within reach. The church calendar regulated time itself, setting the pace of peasant life with holy days, fasts, and festivals. Far from being abstract religious markers, these events deeply influenced practical rhythms: when to plant, rest, or celebrate. Seasons like Lent called for reflection and denial, while feast days brought joy, meat, and merriment. The religious calendar gave structure, predictability, and emotional variety to otherwise monotonous and strenuous routines. Days of rest were determined not just by necessity, but by devotion. The liturgical year mirrored the cycles of nature: birth, death, renewal, reinforcing the idea that their lives were divinely ordered. Every sacred season aligned with agricultural tasks, weaving faith into the very fabric of survival. This sacred timetable provided a way of interpreting hardship and bounty alike, grounding earthly experience in spiritual narrative. It allowed peasants to mark time not only with toil, but with purpose, reinforcing meaning in each passing month and harvest. The church's teachings on charity and mutual support weren't just spiritual ideals, they were critical to communal survival. Villagers lived close to the edge of poverty, and a failed harvest, illness, or injury could devastate an entire family. Though the church collected tithes, it also promoted a culture of giving, encouraging wealthier peasants to assist the poor and the healthy to care for the sick. Christian teachings stressed the importance of neighborly compassion, reinforcing the belief that one's salvation was tied to generosity. Acts of charity were seen as both moral obligations and spiritual investments. In a world without hospitals or welfare, the sick might find care in a neighbor's hut, and the widow might survive winter through shared grain. These informal networks, often organized around church teachings and events, created bonds of trust and mutual obligation. Survival wasn't just about strength or luck. It was deeply rooted in faith-fueled reciprocity. For the medieval peasant, thoughts of the afterlife were ever present. Life on earth was fleeting and full of suffering, but the church taught that it was merely a preparation for eternity. Heaven, with its peace and beauty, was promised to the righteous. Hell, with fire and torment, awaited sinners. This cosmic narrative shaped attitudes toward suffering. Pain was not pointless, but redemptive. The harshness of peasant life, plague, loss, hunger, was reimagined as spiritual trials, refining the soul. Hope lay in enduring faithfully, performing good works, and confessing sins. Even the poorest, if devout, could attain salvation. The church's vivid imagery and constant reminders of Judgment Day created a moral landscape where every action mattered. This belief system didn't erase despair, but it gave it meaning. The promise of eternal joy comforted the grieving and uplifted the downtrodden. Through it, peasants found strength to endure, believing their suffering would be redeemed beyond the grave. Ultimately, the church was the heartbeat of medieval village life, not simply a place of prayer, but the framework through which peasants understood the world and their place within it. It shaped their values, governed their calendars, mediated their disputes, and offered them meaning in the face of poverty and hardship. It taught them how to live and how to die, anchoring their lives in a divine narrative. The church was lawgiver, teacher, judge, healer, and sanctuary. In a world of limited choices, it offered moral clarity and spiritual hope. The idea that one could be poor in body but rich in spirit uplifted countless souls. In contrast, modern society often separates the sacred from the everyday, relegating faith to private life. For medieval peasants, there was no such boundary. Their faith permeated every moment, decision, and emotion. What remains most striking today is how wholly and unquestioningly they embrace this all-encompassing vision of existence. Despite the often bleak picture painted of medieval peasant life, one enduring truth stands out: their resilience. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about an unyielding spirit, a capacity to endure unimaginable hardship and still find moments of hope and even simple joy. Imagine facing constant hunger, back-breaking labor, rampant disease, and the capricious demands of a lord, yet still waking up each morning with the determination to face another day. This wasn't merely brute strength, it was a profound mental fortitude, an ingrained capacity to adapt, persevere, and find meaning in the face of relentless adversity. Their resilience was forged in the cycle of seasons. Every spring brought the hope of new growth, every harvest the reward for their relentless labor, and every winter the test of their preparations. They learned to read the subtle signs of nature, to anticipate its changes, and to adapt their efforts accordingly. A bad harvest wasn't a reason to give up, but a challenge to forage more, to stretch rations further, to tighten their belts and rely on their community. This intimate connection to the earth, both nurturing and demanding, instilled in them an unbreakable cycle of hope, effort, and endurance. Here's a crucial element of their resilience: communal support. In a world without formal safety nets, the village itself was the ultimate safety net. If a family fell ill, neighbors would step in to tend their fields. If a roof collapsed, the community would gather to rebuild it. Shared meals, shared labor, and shared sorrow forged bonds stronger than any law. This collective spirit, born of necessity and reinforced by shared hardship, was a powerful force against individual despair. It reminds us that true strength often lies not just in individual effort but in the power of interconnectedness and mutual aid. Their ingenuity was another remarkable aspect of their resilience. Faced with scarcity, they learned to make do with what they had, turning humble resources into vital necessities. They perfected the art of stretching ingredients, maximizing every calorie from their meager food supply. They developed an intimate knowledge of local plants for both food and medicine. Their tools, though simple, were crafted and maintained with precision, a testament to their practical skills. This constant innovation, driven by the immediate need to survive, showcases a raw, practical intelligence that allowed them to thrive in unforgiving conditions. A surprising factor in their resilience was a profound sense of fatalism mixed with piety. They understood that much of their life was beyond their control: the weather, disease, the Lord's whims. This acceptance, often rooted in religious belief, allowed them to endure suffering without succumbing to constant despair. They prayed for good fortune but were prepared for the worst, viewing hardship as a test of faith. This spiritual grounding provided a mental fortress, allowing them to accept their lot with a certain grace, focusing on what they could control rather than what they couldn't. Their physical hardiness was extraordinary, honed by a lifetime of strenuous labor from childhood. Their bodies were accustomed to long hours of physical exertion, exposure to the elements, and a diet that, while often meager, was unprocessed and natural. What would be debilitating injuries for us today, like a broken bone or a severe infection, were often overcome through sheer physical toughness and an unyielding will to survive, a testament to the human body's remarkable capacity to adapt and endure under extreme conditions, something we often take for granted. Finally, their unwavering hope for the future, however distant, fueled their resilience. The hope for a good harvest, the hope for their children to survive and thrive, the hope for salvation in the afterlife. These hopes, simple yet profound, kept them going. They planted seeds not just for the coming season, but for generations, a tangible expression of their enduring faith in life itself. This quiet, steadfast optimism, even in the face of constant adversity, is perhaps the most inspiring aspect of their unyielding spirit, a beacon in their often dark world. The medieval peasant's life was a masterclass in resilience, a living example of humanity's remarkable capacity to adapt, endure, and find meaning in the most challenging of circumstances. Their legacy is not just one of hardship, but of an unbreakable spirit that paved the way for future generations. As we face our own challenges today, what aspect of their profound resilience do you find most inspiring, and how can we cultivate a similar fortitude in our own lives? Beyond the physical boundaries of their village, the medieval peasant's world was often shaped by the infrequent, yet profoundly impactful, presence of travelers and outsiders. These encounters, whether with wandering merchants, itinerant laborers, or even soldiers passing through, offered rare glimpses into a world far grander and more complex than their small, isolated community. Imagine the excitement and curiosity when a stranger rode into the village square, bringing with them not just goods, but stories, rumors, and a faint scent of the wider world beyond the familiar fields and forests. These brief interactions were vital conduits of information, shaping their limited understanding of distant lands and different ways of life. Merchants were perhaps the most anticipated visitors, even if their wares were largely beyond the peasants' means. They brought exotic, albeit often imitation spices, rare tools, and occasionally glimpses of fine fabrics or jewelry that were the stuff of dreams. More importantly, they brought news, rumors of distant battles, the pronouncements of the king, or tales of great cities and their bustling markets. These fleeting connections offered a mental escape, a brief journey through imagination to places they would never see. The merchant's arrival was always an event, breaking the monotonous rhythm of daily life with a surge of novelty and whispered excitement. Here's an underappreciated aspect of these encounters: the spread of ideas and news. In an age before widespread literacy and mass communication, word of mouth was king. A traveling storyteller might bring new songs or fables, a peddler might share news from the next county, and a returning pilgrim might recount wonders from far-off shrines. This informal network of communication was crucial for connecting isolated communities, providing a vital, if sometimes distorted, flow of information. It highlights how important these human connections were for staying informed, even if the information was filtered through personal experiences and biases. Itinerant laborers and craftsmen also moved through the land, seeking work where it could be found. A skilled blacksmith might stay for a few weeks to repair tools, a mason might be hired for a church repair, or reapers might arrive during harvest season to supplement the local workforce. These individuals, often poorer than the villagers, brought with them different skills and experiences, sharing tales of other villages and other lords. While their presence was temporary, they added a transient layer of diversity to the community, sharing their unique perspectives and sometimes even introducing new techniques. The presence of soldiers or the lord's retinue passing through the village was often a source of both fear and forced hospitality. While they brought the threat of requisition supplies and potential unrest, they also provided a rare opportunity to see arms, armor, and horses beyond anything the peasants owned. The villagers would quickly offer what little they had, hoping to appease the powerful figures and ensure a swift, peaceful departure. These encounters were stark reminders of the larger political forces at play, forces that could intrude violently into their lives with little warning or reason, highlighting their fundamental vulnerability. Occasionally, pilgrims on their arduous journeys to holy sites would pass through, seeking food and shelter. These devout travelers carried tales of miracles and divine intervention, reinforcing the villagers' faith and offering a sense of connection to the wider Christian world. While the peasants might offer them humble hospitality, they also likely saw the pilgrims as living testaments to the power of belief and the potential for salvation beyond their earthly struggles. These interactions, though brief, could be deeply spiritual, providing a profound sense of shared devotion. These interactions with outsiders, however fleeting, served as crucial windows to the wider world, dispelling some of the pervasive isolation. They brought new goods, fresh perspectives, and often news that affected their lives, from new taxes imposed by the king to rumors of wars. While their world remained small and local, these connections ensured they were not entirely cut off from the larger tides of history, allowing them to feel, however faintly, the pulse of the outside world. Ultimately, these brief encounters underscore the self-contained nature of medieval peasant life, yet also highlight the vital human need for connection and information. The traveling merchant, the soldier, the pilgrim, each played a part in shaping their understanding of a world they could only dream of. What role do you think such outsiders play in isolated communities today, and what similarities, if any, do you see in the ways people seek news and connection in our own world? Beyond the physical landscape, the medieval peasants' world was deeply shaped by a pervasive sense of superstition and folk beliefs, woven inextricably into the fabric of their daily lives. These beliefs, often existing alongside official church doctrine, provided explanations for the unexplainable, offered solace in the face of uncertainty, and gave them a sense of agency in a world where so much was beyond their control. Imagine attributing a sudden illness to a mischievous spirit or a good harvest to a blessing from the Fey folk. It was a way of making sense of an unpredictable and often harsh existence, giving form to their fears and hopes. Witchcraft and the evil eye were very real fears, lurking at the edges of their consciousness. If a cow suddenly stopped giving milk or a child fell ill without apparent cause, suspicion might fall upon an old woman living on the edge of the village, or someone with a reputation for odd behavior. Charms and amulets, often blessed by the priest or the wise woman, were worn for protection against malevolent forces. This fear, while often fueled by ignorance and social anxiety, reflects a deep-seated need to find a cause for misfortune, even if that cause was rooted in the supernatural rather than the scientific. Here's an intriguing aspect of their beliefs. The natural world was imbued with spirits and magic. Every tree, every stream, every patch of forest might be home to hidden entities, benevolent pixies, mischievous sprites, or dark malevolent creatures. Offerings might be left at certain ancient trees, or blessings whispered to the river before fishing. This animistic view created a profound sense of respect, and sometimes fear, for the environment around them. It was a world alive with unseen forces demanding reverence and careful navigation, a stark contrast to our often utilitarian view of nature. Omens and prophecies were also keenly observed. A flock of birds flying in a certain direction, the behavior of animals before a storm, or a strange mark on a newborn animal might be interpreted as signs from the divine or the supernatural world, portending good or ill fortune. Dreams were often seen as messages, needing careful interpretation, usually by the wise woman or priest. This constant search for meaning in everyday events speaks to a deep human desire for prediction and control, a yearning for patterns in the chaos of existence, even if those patterns were purely subjective interpretations. The power of charms and rituals was widely believed. A specific chant to mend a broken bone, a ritual performed before planting for a bountiful harvest, or a protective charm against wolves. These practices provided a sense of agency and hope. Even if their efficacy was purely psychological, they offered comfort and a belief that one could influence one's fate. These were not just idle superstitions, they were practical tools, passed down through generations, offering a sense of order and influence in a world where true control was often elusive. Holy wells and sacred sites often held particular significance, believed to possess healing powers or offer special blessings. People would travel to these places, often leaving offerings, seeking cures for ailments or answers to their prayers. These sites were focal points of communal belief, blending pre-Christian traditions with Christian practices, reflecting a syncretic, spiritual landscape. They were places where the veil between the mundane and the miraculous felt thinnest, offering direct access to the divine and a tangible connection to hope. The line between folk healing and magic was often blurred. The village wise woman's herbal remedies might be accompanied by incantations, or her advice might incorporate both practical knowledge and supernatural warnings. Illness could be attributed to a physical cause or to a curse, requiring both medicinal herbs and a counterspell. This holistic approach, combining empirical observation with magical thinking, reflects a pre-scientific worldview where the physical and the metaphysical were deeply intertwined, and understanding cause and effect was often a matter of speculation, rather than scientific method. Ultimately, the medieval peasants' world was rich with belief, where superstition and faith intertwined to explain the inexplicable, cope with hardship, and find meaning in every natural phenomenon. It was a vibrant, often terrifying but profoundly spiritual landscape. Their worldview offers a powerful reminder of how humans have always sought to make sense of their existence, even in the absence of scientific knowledge. What aspects of our modern lives do you think might be seen as superstitious by someone from the medieval period? As the sun gently sets on our fascinating journey through the medieval peasants' arduous day, it's truly time to pause and deeply consider the profound and lasting legacy they undeniably left behind, a foundational bedrock upon which much of our intricate modern world is meticulously constructed and continues to thrive. While their lives were undeniably harsh, frequently brutal, and often tragically short, they were unequivocally not insignificant. Their tireless and relentless labor, their astonishingly enduring resilience in the face of immense adversity, and their deep, almost primal connection to the very earth itself, diligently laid the essential groundwork for the subsequent agricultural revolutions that would dramatically follow, thereby effectively feeding ever-growing populations and enabling the vital rise of burgeoning towns and sprawling cities. They were, in essence, the silent, unsung architects of foundational progress, their sacrifices echoing powerfully through the centuries, their quiet efforts forming the indispensable basis for future societal evolution. Their seemingly simple agricultural innovations, though often overlooked in grand historical narratives, were absolutely fundamental to human development. The gradual yet impactful development of the heavy plow, along with increasingly sophisticated crop rotation techniques, like the highly effective three-field system, and significantly improved animal husbandry practices, while frequently slow to disseminate across vast regions, progressively and steadily increased crucial yields, and significantly improved the precarious state of food security for countless communities. These weren't sudden, revolutionary breakthroughs, but rather painstaking incremental improvements born directly of dire necessity and accumulated through generations of invaluable practical experience, meticulously passed down from father to son and from mother to daughter. They represent a deep, intuitive, and almost innate understanding of the intricate nuances of the land and its cyclical rhythms, a profound testament to their continuous experimentation and remarkable adaptation in the relentless face of constant environmental challenges and the unyielding, ever-present demand for basic sustenance. Here's an often overlooked yet profoundly significant aspect of their lives: the powerful community spirit they painstakingly fostered. In a world utterly devoid of formal institutions of welfare or any meaningful governance beyond the often distant and self-interested Lord, their very survival depended utterly and completely on unwavering cooperation and mutual aid. The communal harvest, the shared allocation of precious resources, and the collective support offered during times of acute crisis meticulously created a powerful, truly enduring sense of deeply rooted village identity. This robust and pervasive communitarianism, forged enduringly in the crucible of shared hardship and collective struggle, stands as a truly powerful and inspiring legacy, consistently reminding us that humanity's greatest inherent strength often lies in its intrinsic ability to powerfully come together and selflessly support one another. A timeless lesson as critically relevant today in our complex global society as it was 1,000 long years ago, amidst the challenges of the medieval era. Their relationship with the land was astonishingly profound and intimately personal, presenting a stark and compelling contrast to much of modern, often detached society. They possessed a visceral, tactile, and deeply ingrained understanding of the soil, the ever-changing weather patterns, the diverse plants, and the various animals that few among us genuinely experience today. This rich and deep ecological knowledge, painstakingly learned through direct, unfiltered observation and faithfully passed down orally through countless generations, was what fundamentally sustained them through countless seasons. While undeniably driven by the harsh dictates of necessity, this intimate connection also profoundly fostered a respectful, almost sacred reverence for nature that we, in our contemporary world, could perhaps learn invaluable lessons from. They were not merely toiling on the land. They were, in a very real sense, living in harmonious partnership with it, acknowledging its immense power and bountiful generosity, alongside its inherent limitations and periodic cruelties. The sheer, unyielding endurance and remarkable resilience of the medieval peasant is perhaps their most potent and truly intangible legacy. They faced relentless, often overwhelming adversity, ranging from widespread famine, devastating disease, brutal warfare, and pervasive oppression, with an absolutely unyielding and indomitable spirit. Their remarkable capacity to perpetually find glimmers of hope, even in the darkest depths of despair, to tirelessly rebuild their shattered lives and communities after catastrophic disasters, and to courageously continue striving forward despite facing overwhelming and seemingly insurmountable odds, speaks volumes to a fundamental, unbreakable human strength that truly transcends the boundaries of time. This unyielding and courageous spirit stands as an eternal testament to the incredible power of the human will to not only survive but also to remarkably flourish under the most challenging and arduous circumstances imaginable, serving as a powerful and enduring reminder that we are all collectively capable of achieving far, far more than we often dare to realize. They also painstakingly laid the deep and intricate foundations for countless cultural traditions that persisted for many centuries, and remarkably, some even endure vibrantly to this very day. Folk songs, joyful seasonal festivals, spontaneous communal celebrations, and rich oral storytelling traditions all have their fundamental roots deeply embedded in peasant life, authentically reflecting their shared joys, their profound sorrows, and their deeply held beliefs. While often adapted, refined, and sometimes even commercialized by later eras and different social strata, the core, authentic elements of these powerful cultural expressions unequivocally stem directly from the everyday lives of ordinary people, celebrating the essential rhythms of life, the changing seasons, and the simple pleasures. These traditions are a vibrant, living echo of their humble yet significant existence, powerfully reminding us of the enduring power of raw human creativity and the vital importance of collective memory, linking us inextricably to our shared past. Even the gradual and organic development of language and its myriad dialects owes an immense debt to the hard-working peasant class. Their everyday, unadorned speech, their pithy proverbs, their authentic expressions of earthy humor, and their poignant tales of hardship slowly and organically evolved into the complex and nuanced languages we fluently speak today. While the literate elite often wrote and communicated formally in Latin, the vibrant vernacular spoken by millions of peasants across Europe formed the living, breathing, and ever-evolving foundation of languages like English, French, and German. Their compelling stories, their heartfelt songs, and their ceaseless daily chatter intimately shaped the very words and grammatical structures we habitually use, undeniably making them the often unacknowledged silent contributors to the rich and intricate linguistic tapestry of the entire world, a testament to their profound yet often invisible influence. So as we gracefully emerge from our thought-provoking journey into the rich and complex medieval past, we can now clearly see that the peasant's life, though unquestionably arduous and fraught with challenges, was indeed deeply rich with profound meaning and undeniable purpose. Their struggles, their ingenious innovations, and their indomitable spirit collectively forged the very bedrock upon which civilizations yet to come would firmly stand. Their enduring legacy powerfully reminds us that true and sustainable progress often quietly begins with the persistent, often unseen efforts of ordinary people, working diligently day by day. As we reflect on their invaluable contributions, what particular aspect of their lasting impact do you personally find most profound, and how might we, in our contemporary narratives, more effectively recognize and celebrate the unsung heroes of history in our own complex world today? As the flickering lamplight of our historical journey begins to dim, we arrive at the threshold of the medieval peasants' future, a future they could never truly foresee, yet one they painstakingly built with every furrow plowed and every seed sown. Their lives were a continuous act of hopeful preparation, a testament to an unwavering belief in the cycle of life, even when their own existence was so profoundly uncertain. They lived not just for today, but for the promise of a harvest tomorrow, for the survival of their children, and for the distant hope of a better world that might one day emerge from their relentless toil. Their enduring spirit, despite constant hardship, carried the faint, vital spark of progress forward through the long centuries. The concept of progress, as we understand it, was alien to them. Their improvements were incremental, born of necessity, and passed down through generations rather than through grand inventions or scientific breakthroughs. A slightly better plow, a more efficient way to thresh grain, a harder-wearing fabric woven from local wool, these were their innovations. Each small step, however seemingly insignificant, accumulated over time, slowly laying the groundwork for more substantial advancements. This continuous, painstaking evolution of agrarian techniques and domestic skills, often overlooked by grand historical narratives, represents a quiet yet powerful form of human ingenuity, adapting and refining in the face of constant environmental and social pressures. Here's a thought-provoking idea. Their lack of material abundance often fostered a profound appreciation for simplicity and the tangible. They didn't crave endless possessions. Their desires were focused on fundamental needs: enough food, shelter, and health to survive. A warm fire, a full belly, the sound of a child's laughter. These were luxuries, cherished deeply because they were hard-won and never guaranteed. This deep, unmediated connection to the basic elements of life might offer a valuable lesson for our own consumer-driven society, prompting us to reconsider what truly brings contentment and a sense of well-being beyond endless acquisition. The family unit was their primary social and economic engine, the bedrock of their survival and the vessel of their future. Every member, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had a role to play, contributing their labor and knowledge to the collective well-being. Marriages were practical alliances, ensuring continuity of labor and land, while children were both a blessing and an economic necessity, ensuring hands for the fields in the years to come. This deeply interconnected familial structure, born of absolute necessity, stands in stark contrast to the often fragmented family dynamics of our modern age, highlighting a different kind of strength found in unbreakable bonds and shared purpose. Their dreams for their children were simple yet profound, not wealth or status, but survival, health, and the ability to continue the cycle of life on the land. They hoped their offspring would escape the worst of famine, avoid the plague, and grow strong enough to face the endless demands of the earth. These hopes, whispered into the cold night air, represented the ultimate act of faith in a future they would never personally experience. It's a powerful reminder of the enduring, universal desire of parents to provide a better, safer life for their children, a timeless thread connecting all generations across history. The future, for them, was largely cyclical, bound by the unchanging rhythms of the seasons and the land. Spring would bring planting, summer growth, autumn harvest, and winter hardship. There was little expectation of dramatic societal shifts or technological leaps. Yet, within this seemingly static existence, there was an enduring spirit of resilience, a quiet determination to meet each challenge as it arose and to continue the ancient dance with the earth. This acceptance of life's inherent patterns, while perhaps limiting, also provided a profound sense of continuity and stability, a grounding force in an often turbulent world. Even as their specific way of life faded with the coming of the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution, the skills and adaptations they perfected endured. Their deep understanding of agriculture, their ability to transform raw materials into necessities, their community structures, all contributed to the societies that followed. The very genetic material they carried, passed down through the generations, holds the echoes of their incredible endurance, a testament to the power of human survival against daunting odds. They are, in a very real sense, the ancestors of our modern world, their invisible labor shaping the very ground we stand upon. As we bring our exploration of the medieval peasants' day to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on their profound legacy. Their lives, though seemingly small in the grand sweep of history, were filled with immense courage, unwavering perseverance, and an unbreakable connection to the earth and to each other. They remind us that true strength often lies not in power or wealth, but in the quiet determination to face each day, to nurture what little we have, and to find meaning in the most fundamental aspects of existence. They were the unsung heroes of history, the bedrock upon which our complex world was slowly, painstakingly built. Now, as the screen fades to black, imagine the gentle quiet of the medieval night settling in around you. The crackling of the fire in the hearth softens to a barely audible whisper, its last embers casting a warm, sleepy glow across the room. The scent of wood smoke, so familiar and comforting, begins to drift away, leaving behind the clean, fresh smell of damp earth and distant fields. All the sounds of the day, the creak of the plow, the distant calls of neighbors, the ceaseless chatter of the village, have long since faded into the profound stillness of the night. Close your eyes now. Feel the warmth of the worn, woolen blanket as it settles around you, a small comfort against the lingering chill. Listen to the gentle hush, broken only by the soft rhythm of your own breathing, slow and even. The worries of the day, like the smoke from the fire, are dissipating, drifting away into the vast, silent darkness. There is nothing left to do, nowhere else to be. Just this moment, this quiet stillness, this soft embrace of the night. Let the simple resilience of the medieval peasant settle into your spirit, a reminder of the quiet strength that resides within us all. Your own journey through time is complete for now. Rest. End of script. Sweet dreams.